Joining us on the chat with the Chief is Shane Michelson, Chief of the City of Osseo Police Department. Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
We're going to spend a few minutes to update residents on things happening within the police department. First, let's talk about community engagement. We've heard a lot about that. What does that mean for the Osseo Police Department, and why is that something that's been so important for a long time and maybe even more important now?
Well, as we've gone in law enforcement, we've found that being secretive and nobody really knowing what we did for a living really didn't play out well in the public eye when we started having cameras and giving people really an inside view of the things that police officers were doing at that time. And so really right now, we've found that our transparency needs to be better in policing. Our engagement with our communities needs to be better. And so I took that upon myself when I came on as the Chief of Police here in Osseo to really engage our community and be as transparent as possible. We've instituted, well, I should say our social media was number one. We didn't really have one. So we created that, and that created quite a buzz. We've had a lot of followers. We make sure highlight cases that we're dealing with, any things going on within the community itself. We'll let them know. We have quite a few followers, and we've grown that even beyond the number of people in Osseo. So we know that even surrounding community people are following us.
Is that something as a police chief you get training for, to be a social media expert, or is this something brand new, right? This has to be new.
Yeah, and I'm not an expert, believe me. But I do leverage our officers who are good at that, and that has been nothing but a wonderful addition to our department. And really, it's engaging, and we'll come back and forth. I have a Facebook page that's more work related. I'm not a huge Facebook or Twitter type person, but I do get good information, and I do engage with the public once in a while, where I'll answer questions or direct them to where they need to be. And I think that's good. I think that's something a lot of times in the past history it would never get answered, and then people would sit and wonder and want to know what's going on. We also instituted what's called Tip 411. That is something that our residents can download right on their phone. It's for free, and then every social media post and any information that we need to get out to the public goes to your phone. It'll actually notify you if you let the notifications come through. We've also put on, I don't know, 4 or 5 big events throughout the year that our officers are involved in. You know, mingling with the community, out there talking to them, shaking hands. You know, it's really interesting in a small community of Osseo. Right now, I bet you 80% of our citizens can name most of our police officers by first name, which I think is very important.
Very nice.
And we have National Night Out, which we put on, which is citywide. We have Mini Dazzle coming up here in December. We just had a Halloween event. On Halloween, we have officers playing music in their squad cars, engaging with the community. So really, we're trying to bring that feel of that small town.
That's fantastic. DiscoverOsseo.com, the place to find out ways to get to that Facebook page and also to sign up to be on that Tip 411. Speaking of officers, let's talk a little bit about your staff situation right now at Osseo. Always changing for police departments right now, but you have a couple new staff people. Tell us about your staff.
Well, so in August, we lost 2 members of our department to another department, and so we hired from within, actually. They were 2 part-time officers, Officer Adrian Lammers and Officer Nick England. Officer England was a Minneapolis police officer and decided to come on with Osseo, and Officer Lammers was with a reservation in southern Minnesota, and she was working for us part-time, and having that ability to then promote from within. We already knew who they were. They fit with our community. Our community members knew who they were, even working part-time. So it really was an easy transition for them to just take over for the 2 officers that left for another agency.
Welcome to the officers. As we head into the winter season here, we're taping this in mid-November. Let's talk seasonal tips for residents. What do people need to know? What are some trends that are happening now, again, that you want to make residents aware of?
Well, the first is your driving conduct in the wintertime. We got to be careful with the ice and snow to make sure that you're slowing down and making sure you give yourself enough time to get to work. We also have issues with people warming up their vehicles, leaving their keys in the car. Then somebody could come up and take the car and steal it. So we ask that you either lock it or don't warm it up. And especially at some of our convenience stores, people just run in and leave their cars running because they don't want to come back to a cold car. If you can't lock it, then probably a good idea to take your keys with you. The one big thing that we've been running into is all the catalytic converter thefts. And so to make sure that you're paying attention and listening at night, or if you have a camera on the outside of your house or something, you're trying to cover those cars, because we're having a lot of people coming up and cutting those catalytic converters and then selling them.
Final note, 911. A lot of thoughts about the use of 911. What do you say? What is your recommendation to Osseo residents about using that number?
That is the first number they should use.
Okay.
Whether it's an emergency or even a non-emergency, it's perfectly fine to use 911. Just when they ask you, is this an emergency, you can say, no, it's a non-emergency. So they can maybe put you on hold and talk to someone else if they need to, but they will come back to you. But the easiest way to get a hold of one of our officers is through 911, not calling the office, not calling me. I get that, a small town.
Sure.
I get that not often, but sometimes people call me directly, and I think the best way and the easiest way to make sure that your complaint is heard is to call 911.
Chief, thanks so much for your time, and thanks again for all the great work you do up at Osseo and all the rest of the staff.
Thank you.
All right, again, if you want more information about the Osseo Police, discover Osseo.com. Learn more about The Connection at ccxmedia.org and follow us on social media.